Hart at the Hazbin Hotel, Chapter 5. There's going to be lots of fluff in this chapter, so I hope you're ready. Let's get started. Chapter 5, The Radio Demon is Mine. Hart's Point of View. Alastor! I screamed. I was running. Someone was chasing me. I didn't know who it was. I didn't look back to check. The streets of hell seemed to go on forever. They were so dark. I couldn't find my way back to the hotel. I felt like I was going in circles. I called for Alastor, but he was nowhere. I didn't see him. What if he couldn't save me from his evil following me? Al! Please help me! I screamed again. I then tripped in a hole on the sidewalk. I knew I was done for. I turned to face my pursuer. It was a man. He was a snake, his hood outstretched. Eyes looked at me. He came closer, and I recognized him. It was Serpentius. He took his tail and wrapped it around me tight. He hissed, "Well, you're in my grasp now. Alastor will have to do as I say." I punched him in the face. "Let me go, asshole. Alastor defeated you before. He can do it again." He held his stinging cheek and hissed back at me in anger. "That's true, but this time I have you," he laughed. "Well, will he harm me still, knowing I have you?" Then it hit me. What if I became a target for bigger demons and Alastor wouldn't be able to defeat them? All because of me. Serpentius seemed to notice my silence as I was in my thoughts, because he let out a maniacal laugh. "As long as you're with him, he is weak." I closed my eyes and started to cry. It was all my fault. I opened my eyes. I was in bed at the hotel. I looked up and looked at the time. I slept in a little. All that dancing last night wore me out. Then the memories of last night came back to me. Alastor. We both danced together, sang together, finally revealed our true feelings. Well, to the best of our abilities. It made me smile. The radio demon was mine. No one else would be able to say that. I giggled at the thought. Then my dream came back to me. What Serpentius had said, I know it was just a dream, but I was worried that maybe it was true. What if I made Alastor weak? Distracted? Would he hurt me if I was in the way? Would he understand? Would I stop him from using his full potential? Maybe it was something I had to talk to him about, or at least maybe we should keep it a secret. No one needs to know, at least not right now. Besides, I knew he would be taking everything slow anyway, so in due time. I looked down at my left wing. The bandage still had stayed on during the night, but I could feel that my wing was sore. I should be healed within a few days, I'm sure. My chest also hurt from the slight claw marks the lizard gave me. I then heard a knock on my door. It startled me a little. "Come in. It's unlocked," I told the person behind the door. The door slowly opened. I was half expecting it to be Alastor and got excited. But it was Charlie. I was still happy to see the girl. "Hi, Charlie," I greeted. "Hello, Hart." Charlie closed the door behind her. "I came in to check on you. I figured after yesterday you'd definitely be tired, so I let you sleep in." She sat down on the edge of my bed. "Plus, with you injured, I want to make sure you don't overdo yourself. I'll give you till your wing is better. But you don't have to worry about helping out with the hotel for a little bit, okay?" I understood why Charlie would be concerned. She didn't want me to injure myself more than I already was. "Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate that. I'll be back to 100% in no time," I told her with a small smile. "I'm glad to hear," Charlie said, excited. "Now, why don't you just stay in bed today and relax? If you need anything, just let us know, all right?" I nodded. "Of course, Charlie. Thank you." Charlie patted my hand on the bed and got up. She headed to the door, but when she opened it, Alastor was standing there. My ears perked up and my tail wagged as I saw him. Charlie jumped in surprise from seeing him. "Alastor, you almost gave me a heart attack. How long were you standing there?" she asked him. "Not long," was all he said. Charlie sighed. "Listen, Al, I told Hart to just stay in bed today. Think you can help her out if she needs it?" "Of course!" course, it would be my pleasure. Just leave her to me and don't worry about a thing, he answered her as he smiled. He then winked towards me. I got a little blush on my face. Thanks, Al. You're the best. She gave me one last wave and walked past the deer demon. Alastor walked into my room and closed the door behind him. Good morning, my dearest. How did you sleep? He asked as he walked to my bed. Should I tell him about my dream? I feel I should. I didn't want to keep anything from him. I wanted him to trust me. I slept okay, but I didn't have a good dream, I told him as I pulled the covers up more. Alastor leaned down and kissed my forehead, then sat on the edge of my bed close to me. A bad dream, you say? He placed his hand on top of mine on the bed. Care to tell me about it? I'll listen and make it all go away. I smiled at his touch, and I found it cute that he wanted to listen to me. Well, I was being chased through the streets, but it was dark, and no one was around. I screamed out for help, but no one seemed to come. I tripped and noticed the person following me was Sir Pentious. He wrapped me in his tail, holding me tightly. I took a pause and gripped my blanket. He said I was part of his plan. A plan to get to you, I finally said as I looked away from him. I sighed. I realized that in that dream that but I was silenced as Alastor putting a finger to my lips. Darling, don't think such wacky nonsense. He took his finger away. I know what you're getting at. You think you'll make me weak by getting in the way. Surprised he figured it out, I just nodded. Alastor chuckled. Oh, my little wolf, don't you worry. I'm here to protect you. He took his hand and cupped my cheek so I could look at him. Nothing will stop me from helping you out. I'll face all the demons in hell if I have to, just to get to you. I smiled at his answer. It made me feel better. Ah, now you're fully dressed, Alastor pointed out. That's just the way I want to see you. He rubbed his finger against my cheek. I chuckled at his statement. He made me happy, and in return, that made him happy. Alastor, can I ask you one thing? I wanted to get this out of the way. Anything, my dear. He took his hand away from my cheek. Can we maybe keep this a secret from everyone? You and me? At least for now, I asked him. If that is what you wish, I do not mind at all, the deer demon answered. I was thinking about the same thing, honestly. Thank you. I'm glad you feel the same. Plus, I feel this is going to go slow for us. Even now, I'm happy and content with what I had, I told him. I'm sure it would definitely get better from here. I promise that, Alastor said and gave me a pat on the head. My tail wagged. I didn't want Alastor to leave. I wanted him here with me. Charlie told him to take care of me, so I'm sure no one would miss him. Although our moment was interrupted by my stomach growling, I blushed and wrapped my arms around myself. Sorry, I never did eat dinner yesterday, I explained. I can help you with that. You stay here. I'll get something for you, Alastor said as he stood up. Oh, you don't have to do that. I wasn't used to someone doing stuff for me. Alastor waved his hand at me. Now. Charlie said for you to rest and stay in your room today. She asked me to help you, so I am. He walked to the door. I'll be back in no time. Alastor walked out of my room. I sat in bed, a little surprised. I wasn't expecting the deer demon to do something like that for me. It was nice. I felt prouder to have him. Soon, Alastor returned with a bowl of cereal in hand. He walked back over to my bed and handed it to me. I made sure to get your favorite, he sang. I laughed and took the bowl, and he sat back on my bed. It was my favorite, the cereal with marshmallows in them. How did you know? I asked and took a bite. You weren't the only one observing someone for 2 months, Alastor admitted. You've been watching me? He nodded. You're my personal creeper then, I said with a laugh. He gave out a small laugh as well at that. Yes, I am, he admitted with a purr. I blushed slightly. I took another bite of the cereal. I wanted to swallow my spoonful before I started to talk again. Al, can you stay in here with me? Just for today, I asked him shyly. We can watch, what do you call them? Picture shows? If you like. Alastor got up from the bed, and in the process, took off his coat. He placed it at the chest at the foot of the bed. Again, my eyes went straight to his small tail. But I tried to push the thought away, the thought of me still wanting to touch it. No, stop, push it away. Alastor looked up at me. I would love to, he answered. I smiled at his answer. Will you sit next to me in bed? I asked. Hopefully I wasn't pushing my luck. Only if I sit on the side with your uninjured wing, he answered. I nodded excitedly. He was going to be in bed with me. My tail wagged so fast. I pointed to the closest dresser by the bathroom. The TV is there. You need me to help you figure it out? I knew Alastor didn't like technology too much and wasn't interested in learning how they worked. He was just old school. Alastor waved me off. No, I'm sure I can work it out. He sounded a little unsure, but I took more bites of cereal. Alastor had a little trouble at first. He didn't even know how to turn the TV on. He eventually figured it out. When I would try to get out of bed, he used his powers to put me right back in. He managed to pick a movie and get it in the player. He handed me the remote. See? Told you I could do it, he said proudly. It only took you 45 minutes, but very good job, honey, I told him. Alastor was proud of himself. I had finished my cereal a long time ago, the bowl now set aside on the side table. I managed to move over so that there was enough room for Alastor. He then got into the bed next to me. Both of us were sitting up with our backs against the headboard. We had a tiny space between us at first. I went ahead and started the movie. Not even 20 minutes in, he reached over and grabbed my hand. He pulled it over so that it laid on his lap. I moved over a tiny bit until we were actually touching. He didn't say anything or move away, so I assumed he was okay with it. A little bit later, Alastor switched the hand he was holding mine with and used his now free arm to wrap it around my shoulders and pull me closer to him. He rubbed his hand lightly on my arm. This feeling was so nice. I was enjoying this immensely. I wrapped my good wing around him as well as I could. Could we call this our official first date? I wanted it to feel that way. I leaned into Alastor's side and rested my head on his chest. I could hear the slight sound of his heart. Relaxed. Calm. Something I never would have thought I would experience here in hell, nor thought I would experience it with the most powerful demon here. But he was all mine. We sat in a nice silence while the movie played. I could tell Alastor had never really watched movies, but he didn't seem to ask questions, so it was nice. Then, before we knew it, the movie was over. Alastor unwrapped himself from me and got up to take the movie out. I looked out of my window to see what I could see from my bed. It wasn't much today, but I could see an explosion off in the distance. Probably another turf war going on, or a gang making trouble. Alastor walked back over to my bed and reached over to grab my hand. He brought it to his lips to place a kiss on top of it. I smiled softly in content. Alastor looked at my abandoned dirty bowl on the side table. Let me go and take this down to the kitchen. He reached over and grabbed it. I'll be right back. I nodded and he walked out of the room. I took this moment to get out of bed and stretch a little. It was hard to sit for a while, and I'm sure Alastor will make me stay in bed. Third person, point of view. In the lobby. Alastor walked down the hall, down the stairs, and into the lobby. Charlie was there as well as Vaggie. The two sat on the couch and were talking about stuff for the hotel. Husk was at the bar, drinking again. Angel seemed to be admiring himself in a mirror. Alastor managed to walk down by everyone and into the kitchen. He cleaned the bowl and put it to dry. He walked back out into the lobby. Charlie then noticed Alastor's presence and looked at him from the couch. Hey, Al, haven't seen you in a while. How have you been? Alastor stopped and looked at her. You wanted me to take care of Miss Hart, did you not? Well, yes, I did, but... Charlie started, but Vaggie interrupted. You put him in charge of taking care of her? Vaggie exclaimed. Charlie looked at her friend. Well, yeah, I saw no harm. Plus, he's right next to her anyway. Angel then walked over and leaned against the back of the couch. Or he could be doing nasty things to her without anybody knowing. He chuckled with a smirk. Alastor laughed at the spider demon's remark. No, my friend. I'm not into doing stuff like that, and neither is she. Angel growled. You guys are no fun. Vaggie growled and looked at the radio demon. You better not be up there scaring her or harming her," Vaggie warned, pointing a finger at him. "Because if I find out you did anything, I'll..." It was then Alastor that interrupted her. "My dear, I would never do such a thing to her," Alastor told her sternly. "I would never harm her." "How can I take your word?" Vaggie said as she stood up from the couch. "If you do not believe me, then come see for yourself." Alastor gestured to the stairs. "Fine. I'll probably be best if someone normal checked on her anyway." Vaggie then walked up the stairs and Alastor followed. Charlie watched them go. She hoped Vaggie wouldn't be hard on them. She wished she had as much faith in Alastor as she did. Hart seemed to just enjoy him as much in the first place. Hart's point of view, back in her room. I noticed Alastor's jacket was still on the chest at the foot of the bed. I hope you wouldn't mind, but I took the jacket and put it on. It was probably too small for me, since I had a bigger frame than him, but I snuggled into it a little. It was so warm, even though it's been sitting there for a few hours without it being on him. It smelled like him. I felt relief wash over me. I took off the jacket, but I didn't put it back. I took it with me into bed. I laid it over top of the sheets to me. I had gotten back into bed just in time as my door opened again. I was hoping to see Alastor, but I saw Vaggie first. Alastor then walked up behind her. Alastor looked at me, and he looked down to notice his jacket on top of me. He raised one eyebrow as he looked. I gripped Alastor's jacket and gave a sheepish smile. Vaggie looked behind her at the radio demon. "Alastor, can you maybe give us a moment alone?" she whispered. "Of course. If you need anything, I'll be right across the way," Alastor said as he walked over to the other side of the hallway. Vaggie walked in and closed the door behind her. She walked beside my bed. "Hi, Hart. I hope you're feeling okay," she asked. "I'm okay. It's weird taking it easy today, but it's nice," I told her with a small smile. She took a seat on the edge of my bed. "Charlie wanted me to come up here and check on you. Make sure you're okay, especially with..." But I knew where she was going, so I interrupted. "Especially with Alastor looking after me." I gave a giggle. I figured that much. Vaggie was amazed that I knew. I knew Vaggie, though. For the short time I've been here, she wasn't up here for Charlie's sake. She was up here for her own. Vaggie didn't trust Alastor, but that's understandable. I didn't trust him either. After last night, I realized that he wasn't as bad as people thought, or at least for me. I did something to him no one else has. "Don't worry, Vaggie. I'm fine, and Alastor is taking amazing care of me." I laid my hand on her shoulder. "I'm okay in his hands." I smiled and placed my other hand on the Alastor's jacket that laid on top of me. Vaggie was surprised by my answer. She just looked at me. It's almost like she thought I was crazy. I didn't blame her, though. She didn't understand, and I wasn't going to tell her. Not yet. Alastor and I together needed to still be secret. Vaggie pushed my hand off her shoulder. "He brainwashed you!" she exclaimed and stood up. I was surprised by her outburst. I almost didn't know what to say. Vaggie continued. "He did something to you." I put my hands up in defense, my ears going back slightly. "Vaggie, he did nothing to me. I swear to you," I told her. She reached over and grabbed the collar of my shirt. "Stop lying to me. He used his magic on you. He shouldn't be trusted, and you know it. I saw you've been avoiding him for 2 months, focusing on your rehabilitation. Now that he saved you, you're spending time with him." She let go of my shirt and pushed me back. "Just because he saved you doesn't mean he's your hero." He grabbed his jacket off of the bed. I tried to reach for it back. "Hey, give that back to me!" I yelled with a small growl. She held it out further from my reach, and I tried to get on my knees to grab it, but I didn't want to fall off the bed. "He is nothing but a lying scumbag who just does something to get a reaction out of someone for his own creepy entertainment." She threw his jacket on the floor a little ways away. "Open your damn eyes!" My ears went back against my head in sadness. Tears from my eyes. I was angered by her action, and how she was treating me. I put my ears to the side in anger. "You don't even fucking know Alastor." "And you do?" Vaggie yelled back at me. "No, but I'm actually giving him a chance. I'm giving him a chance to tell me, to treat him like a normal individual, not a monster. How do you know how he is? Just because of his past? From stories?" I stood up from the bed and stood in front of her. "Maybe that's not how he is anymore." I said to her face, my tears falling. I walked past her and grabbed his jacket from the ground. Maybe he's changed. I gripped his jacket and pulled it close to me. My door then opened. I looked up and saw Alastor walk in. Finally, I didn't want to deal with Vaggie anymore. Alastor, I whispered as I cried. Alastor said nothing, but I saw his crimson eyes were bright, with his eyes slanted in anger, his whole face aglow. He walked up to me, putting one of his clawed hands on my cheek, and tried to wipe away my tears, but they kept falling. He didn't like to see me cry. It seemed to make him angrier. He wrapped his other arm around me and pulled me close to him. I cried into his chest. It seemed to him it didn't matter if Vaggie was in the room or not. He wanted to comfort me no matter what. He snapped his head up and looked at Vaggie with his eyes still slanted and glowing brighter as they looked at her. I think it's time you left, he said in a deep voice. Vaggie looked shocked. She didn't want to believe what she was seeing. She said nothing and just shuffled around us. Alastor's eyes never left her. She closed the door behind her. I continued to cry into him. He said nothing, though. Alastor did something I wasn't expecting. He picked me up into his arms. I didn't let go of his jacket. I kept it close to me. He carried me to the bed and sat me down, being careful of my injured wing. He sat down next to me and wrapped his arms around me. I was basically almost laying on his chest. I started to say between my tears, but he put a finger to my lips. Shh, it's okay. He put his finger away. I heard everything that you've been saying. I sniffled a little. He heard everything. Alastor chuckled slightly. Don't worry too much, sweetheart. I was actually proud you stood up for me the way you did. He took a pause. But I heard you crying when she started to be too much for you. I knew I had to step in. I would have done something since she hurt you, but she's Charlie's friend. I can't harm her. I looked up at him, and I tried my best to stop my crying. He took his hand and tried to wipe them away. I'm glad you did. I couldn't handle it anymore by myself. I tried my best to defend you, I told him. Alastor patted my head softly. I know. I'm glad you didn't listen to her lies. I wouldn't do anything to you like that. He looked down into my eyes, and his smile grew. Now, can I get a smile from you, my dear? You know what I say? That smile of his. I couldn't hold it back. Seeing it just made me want to smile all the time. I couldn't deny his request either. I gave a smile back, the best I could muster. You're never fully dressed without a smile, I said, finishing his sentence. He let out one of his radio-sounding chuckles. That's right. He leaned down and kissed my forehead gently. I laid my head back down on his chest. I wrapped my arms around him. He continued to pet my head. My tail wagged from the touch. I heard his heart under my ear. It was almost lulling me. To think, the radio demon actually had a heart to begin with. After that mental and emotional struggle I just had with Vaggie, it seemed to take energy out of me. I was falling asleep. My eyelids grew heavy. The combination of the silence of the room, him petting me, his warmth, and the sound of his heart under my ear was just enough for me. Soon I felt my world going black as I slowly drifted into sleep. One last sentence escaped me before the world went black. I didn't even realize because it just slipped out, although I didn't regret it. I love you, Alastor. Third person point of view. Hart was now asleep on Alastor. He heard her accidental sentence. He wasn't sure if she meant it since she was in a daze of sleep. Even so, sometimes they say dreams are thoughts from the heart. Even so, if she didn't mean to say it now, she meant it. Alastor was smiling so hard. He kept his hand on her head. She was just so calm asleep. He looked at her face and got lost in her. She was amazing. What kind of monster like him, the radio demon, deserves such a pure and innocent soul like her? That answer he wouldn't know. He knew her story, sent here because of something she regretted. Alastor liked any murder compared to his own, but he never felt bad about his. He was a psychopath, at least he was. Something was changing in him. He didn't know what. He was still a crazy lunatic, but for the most part, he just wanted to use his powers for something better. To protect her. Alastor didn't know what to feel, but all he knew was this girl was important to him. The door to Hart's room opened, but Alastor knew it was Charlie. He felt her approach. He didn't want to move, but he was okay with that. He wanted her to see them like this. The door was fully open. Charlie stood a moment in the doorway. She gave them a smile. It seemed like she needed to talk to him. She waved to him to come into the hallway. Alastor didn't want to get up from the spot in the bed. He was comfortable because Hart was. Unfortunately, he couldn't when it came to Charlie, using his power so he wouldn't disturb her. He kept her still so he could sneak out from under her. He reached for his jacket, but then realized she should keep it for now. He gently laid her on the bed. She laid on her stomach. He used his power to get the blanket from the bottom of the bed and put it on her. He looked at Charlie and nodded, letting her know he'll be there in a moment. She nodded as well, and Charlie closed the door. Alastor looked back down at Hart. "I love you too, my little wolf," Alastor whispered. He kissed the top of her head and walked out, being careful not to close it too loud. Alastor walked to Charlie, who stood next to the door. "What can I do you for, dear?" Alastor asked. Charlie looked up at him with a smirk. "Getting comfortable, are we?" she joked. Alastor seemed to blush ever so slightly, but he didn't want her statement to faze him, so he kept calm. "Maybe I am, but I'd like it to stay between us, if it may." Charlie nodded. "Don't worry, Al. Your secret is safe with me." "I'd also like if your friend didn't come up here again and try to harm her with her words," Alastor suggested. "She really made the girl upset." Charlie nodded. "Yes, that's why I came up here to speak with you. Vaggie told me some things, but I know her. She doesn't trust you, but I do. She said you had a spell on Hart, but from what I just saw and been seeing, that's not true." Charlie crossed her arms and gave Alastor a look that said she was entertained. Alastor cleared his throat. "Yes, well, you could say that the girl—" He looked back at the hotel room door. "Put a spell on me instead." He then gave a sheepish smile and looked back to Charlie, and that's all she needed to hear. Just a small note, since the chapter's over. I absolutely love Vaggie. She's one of my favorite characters. But just based on the pilot, she seems to hate Alastor, so I wanted to keep the anger around. But don't get me wrong. I like Vaggie, so I mean, she's cool. So don't get the wrong idea from the chapter. Anyway, end of chapter 5.